What kind of level of demand are you seeing for flights?
Oh, the demand is definitely there. There's a huge and pent-up demand here for people to come and see family members that haven't been able to be meeting across this pandemic, as well as people who want to go on holiday as well. So the demand is definitely there. Now it's down to unwinding the restrictions to restart travel in a safe way. So today is a very, very important first step on that, as that travel ban is being removed and is now allowed again to travel.
But as you said, it is really a first step. We're just seeing a very few flights here today at Gatwick and, of course, other airports. How hopeful are you that the government will relax some of that caution and allow more countries onto that green list?
I am, because if they're looking at the data, the latest in-depth analysis shows that you could actually put on most of Europe on that green list without jeopardizing the vaccination program or drive any significance of hospitalization rate. So the data is available and it is there, and most of Europe is now opening up as well. So if they don't do that, UK will be left behind on that. But I think that is very unlikely if they're looking at the evidence and they're looking at the data.
And yet we are also hearing from the government they are concerned about the spread of this new Indian variant, that it may delay the further relaxing of restrictions next month. Does that give you pause for concern?
Well, that's why the risk-based approach has been taken with the green, amber and red. So there are methodologies in round to manage that, and that is something that needs to be managed also domestically. And what we believe is right and fair is that the government looks at reopening also international travel in a safe way with the same lens as they do as they open up also the domestic economy. So we believe that with the data that is available today, much of Europe could go on to that green list.
And so are you talking with policymakers here in the UK? Are you talking to the government? What kind of advice are they giving you about planning the next few weeks and months?
Well, they are very cautious, but we have provided and given them a huge number of information. We have given them particularly, the results and the report that Yale did, School of Public Health here. There was based on data made from the middle of April that actually showed that with that data that was available then, that you could restart travel and have much of Europe onto that green list. So we have offered help and support in any way we can. And the most important thing for us as well is, of course, that it's safe to do so. We would never jeopardize anything. We have been in lockdown, and last year, as you know, the fleet was grounded for 11 weeks. We would never do anything that would get us back into that situation. But now we believe the data and the evidence is there to restart travel at a larger scale than we see today.
And so how confident are you about the summer, and how would you manage if we saw another lost summer? How would that affect EasyJet?
Well, first of all, EasyJet came into this crisis as one of the strongest airlines in Europe, and we have taken very difficult and decisive decisions to make sure that we have liquidity, that we can manage our cash burn and the cost control. But what's happening now is Europe is opening up. We see a huge number of European countries who is now unwinding and removing the restrictions are in place because of the reasons that I just mentioned. And I believe that UK will also follow that if they're looking at the data that is available.
But given that level of caution from the UK and actually across Europe, we are still seeing levels of caution there as well. What will it mean if you do see a summer where you aren't able to get back to full capacity?
Well, I would argue to say on the contrary, last week there was a number of countries now who removed a number of restrictions in there, and particularly if you're vaccinated, that in a number of countries there are no need for any restrictions at all. And they're looking at the data and they're making that call as well. So I believe that is what is going to happen. And look, this is a first step today, and we're still early on in the season, so I'm still confident about the fact that this can be a strong summer.
And when you look at that green list from the UK, which countries do you really need to be added to that green list, and added to that green list very soon?
Well, most of the popular holiday destinations, but also this is not only about holidays. There are millions of British people who has family members who lives across Europe as well that they haven't been able to unite with, and that is one big part of our customer group as well, to make sure that we can do that in a safe way. And that's what I still believe, that there's a strong case that can be done.
And when you look ahead, even though you sound very confident today and you expect to have a good summer, are you putting in place contingency plans for if you do not have that good summer? Will EasyJet have to raise cash, for example?
Well, we're always assuming that we're going to need to live with things that, isn't exactly going to go as planned. And that's what we've been doing across this whole time with the pandemic. But we're going to manage every situation that's get thrown at us. Like I said, we came in at this as one of the strongest airlines in Europe, and we're still an investment-grade airline, which you don't find many airlines out there in the world that is at this moment in time as well. So we're going to manage through whatever the situation is ahead of us. But I still believe that if you're looking at the data and the evidence, I think we're going to need to see an expansion of that green list of countries here from the UK as well.
And finally, very briefly, you mentioned you consider yourselves one of the strongest airlines out there. Given the number of other airlines who are struggling at the moment, does that actually provide an opportunity for EasyJet?
Well, listen, I think it's fair to say also that, that it's been a tough time for every airline, and EasyJet is not an exception from that. So, of course, I think that there will be opportunities out there, but first and foremost, now we need to make sure that we can restart travel in a safe way, and today is an important step here in the UK as the ban is being removed.